Hi friends from Hawthorne, it's Miss Carrie. I'm going to read you a story tonight called Bubba the Cowboy Prince, a fractured Texas tale. See if you can figure out which story this kind of sounds like. Are you ready? Here we go. Once a strapping young feller named Bubba lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful lazy stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sun up to sundown, doing chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained, though. He loved ranching. Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback, bossing Bubba around. "Get them doggies along there, Bubba," ordered Dwayne. "Yeah, and watch out for them cow patties," added Milton. "You know how Daddy hates for you to track up the house." Now, Miss Lorraine, who lived down the road a piece, was the purtiest and richest gal in the country. She owned the biggest spread west of the Brazos, and she loved ranching too. But it was lonesome work, and after a while she decided it was time for some companionship. "I am to find myself a feller," she said, "one who loves ranching as much as I do. And it wouldn't hurt if he was cute as cow's ear either." Miss Lorraine decided to throw a ball. She sent invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. Soon the day of the ball arrived. Milton and Dwayne spent all day getting gussied up in their finest duds. Bubba about ran himself ragged waiting on them. "Bubba!" shouted Dwayne. "Fetch my bolo tie." "Bubba!" shouted Milton. "Get my boots polished." "Bubba!" shouted his wicked stepdaddy. "Brush them horses and wash that wagon." By the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy were ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, as they climbed into the wagon, Bubba asked, "Can you wait for me to get ready? I want to dance with Miss Lorraine too." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorrier than a steer in a stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miss Lorraine dancing with the likes of you?" said Milton. "Miss Lorraine wouldn't even wipe the dirt clods off her boots with that raggedy shirt of yours. And you smell more like the cattle than the cattle do." Bubba took a look at himself. It was true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear. His boots were downright disgraceful, and he did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miss Lorraine wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba hung his head. He felt lower than a rattlesnake in a gully. Milton and Dwayne and their wicked daddy went off to the ball. Bubba mounted his horse and headed for the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker and black and dull at midnight. It looked like a Texas thunderstorm was brewing. Bubba had just arrived at the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice. "Go to the ball, Bubba," said the voice. Bubba looked around. No one was there except for him and the cows. Now Bubba figured he'd been bonked the bejeebers out of his bean, because the voice was coming from a cow. She chewed her cud for a moment, and then she said, "I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up, rubbing his head. "I'd like to go, Miss Cow God, but shoot, I don't have nothing to wear." The fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba's raggedy clothes changed into the handsome cowboy duds he'd ever laid eyes on. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, his shirt was dazzling, and his Stetson was whiter than new salt lick. "Why, I look downright purty," said Bubba. The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and the nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion Bubba had ever seen. "Now, you go off to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miss Lorraine, but you best be home by midnight, 'cause that's when the magic runs out." "Yahoo!" shouted Bubba as he jumped up on the white horse and galloped off to the ball. When Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing, but every time Miss Lorraine finished a dance, she yawned. "There goes another $10 Stetson and a 5-cent head," she complained. "Where are all the real cowboys?" By the time it was Bubba's turn to dance with Miss Lorraine, it was almost midnight. As soon as she saw Bubba, Miss Lorraine's eyes lit up. "Why, you're cute as a cow's ear," she said. Bubba blushed, then took Miss Lorene in his arms and started dancing. Dwayne and Milton turned purple with jealousy. "Who's that dude?" said Dwayne. "I don't recollect seeing him before, but he looks mighty familiar," said Milton. "Do something," said their wicked daddy. "That cowboy is winning Miss Lorene's heart." As it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing because Bubba and Miss Lorene were in the middle of do-si-doing when the clock struck midnight. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds turned into the dirty rags he usually wore around the ranch. He looked sorry and smelled worse. "What is that awful smell?" asked Milton. "Why, it's Bubba," shouted Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red, apologized to Miss Lorene, and ran out of the room. "Wait!" she yelled, chasing after him. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped on his cow and lumbered off in the night. In the ruckus, he lost one of his dirty cowboy boots. Miss Lorene clasped into her arms. "This is the boot of a real cowboy and the man I want to marry, and I am to find him." Miss Lorene went back inside, and although she asked everybody at the ball, nobody knew who the mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy, that is. But they weren't talking. The next day, Miss Lorene went from ranch to ranch looking for the cowboy who owned the boot. When she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, both brothers tried the boot on, but it didn't fit. Miss Lorene had just climbed on her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty and sweaty and smelly for working with the cows, and he was only wearing one boot. Miss Lorene jumped off her horse and ran over to Bubba. "Try this on," she cried. Bubba took the dirty boot and pulled it on. "Much obliged, ma'am," and he said blushingly. It fit perfectly. "You're my prince in cowboy boots," shouted Miss Lorene. "I'd recognize that smell anywhere. Marry me, cowboy, and help me work on my ranch." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy threw chicken fits. But Bubba just smiled, and he and Miss Lorene rode off into the sunset. They lived happily ever after, roping and cow-poking and getting up them doggies along. I hope you enjoyed this story, Bubba the Cowboy Prince. Good night.